Mellow music plays as we open on a man laying down a cloth before pouring himself a drink. He takes some water and runs his finger around the rim of the glass before putting it down, wrapping it in the cloth, and smashing it with a cane. He then pours the shattered glass into a pair of slippers, before putting the same slippers onto his bare feet. He walks with the cane into a large empty house. 60s pop music plays as the Marvel Studios fanfare plays. It stops suddenly and picks up again as Stephen Grant wakes up. He undoes the restraint on his right ankle before walking away from his bed, which is surrounded by a small frame of sand. Stephen calls his mother while feeding his one-finned goldfish Gus. He finishes leaving a voicemail on his mom's phone as he leaves his home, briefly interrupted by a broom vendor right outside his door. Stephen catches a bus to the British Museum in London, which is showcasing an exhibit on ancient Egypt. He explains mummification to a young girl vis-a-vis the ritual, but is interrupted by his boss Donna, who calls him Stevie. He corrects her to call him Stephen, while she scolds him for tour guiding when he should be focused on selling gifts from the shop. Another associate approaches Stephen to ask if they are still on for steak at 7 o'clock the next night. He cannot recall and assumes the woman is asking him out. She giggles and walks away as Donna comes back and asks him what a vegan would eat in a steak house. When he rebuffs her remark, she walks away. Later, as they are closing, Donna continues to scold Stephen for constantly being late, which is why she assigned him to inventory. He tries to point out some of the historical inaccuracies of what they are selling at the museum, but Donna refuses to listen. He tells her that the Ennead is comprised of 9 Egyptian gods, but only 7 are present on the picture they are selling. Donna jokes about the mistake and continues to throw insults at Stephen before dismissing him. As he leaves, Stephen says goodbye to a security guard, who greets him as Scotty, to which Stephen replies, "It's Stephen with a V." As Stephen eats, he explains his sleepwalking to a gold-painted street performance mime who looks strikingly like the man who donned the glass-filled slippers at the start. He reaches the conclusion that he will need to overcome his sleepwalking if he is to commit to a girlfriend. At home, Stephen spreads the sand around his bed and locks each of the locks on his door. He attaches his ankle restraint and begins to listen to a podcast on staying awake while he fiddles with a Rubik's Cube. Clips show him doing other activities to keep his mind awake, reading about the Ennead as the podcast suggests to read a book as a way of keeping the mind awake. As Stephen hears the words, "Think of yourself as a part of the story," he suddenly wakes up in a field of grass in great pain over his jaw. As he stands up, he hears a voice telling him to go back to sleep. He is told to surrender the body to Stephen. Stephen removes a gold scarab from his pocket as a figure approaches him from behind carrying a staff. As Stephen turns around, he sees that he is trespassing on a castle's property, and is shot at by guards. The voice tells him to run away. Stephen runs away as the guards pursue him, missing with every shot they take. Stephen comes to a part of the town where Harrow, a man with long hair in a dark red outfit, is being greeted by the people who clear a path for him. The man leads all the townspeople to the open town square, where he comments, with an American accent, on the beauty of the day. He tells the people that their job is to make Earth feel as much like heaven as possible. He asks, who wants to go first? A random man approaches and is greeted by Harrow, who commends him on offering his soul for judgment, waiting to serve our goddess even before she wakes. Harrow places the cane in the man's hands as he performs a ritual to judge the name in the name of Ammit, the Egyptian funerary deity, a god of death. Stephen and the other townspeople watch on as Harrow's scale tattoo on his right arm glows slightly before he declares the person a good man and hugs him. The guards continue to search for Stephen amongst the spectators, as Harrow reveals that his name is Arthur. A woman presents herself to Arthur, and Stephen watches as his scale tattoo tips to one side and turns red. Arthur apologizes to the woman as she receives Ammit's judgment and falls back. People carry away her lifeless body. The armed guards who were chasing Stephen come to Arthur's side and tell him they were ambushed during the exchange, and 2 of their men were killed. To weed out the spy, Arthur calls out an order in ancient Egyptian, and Stephen is immediately found out. Arthur identifies Stephen as a mercenary. Stephen identifies himself to the crowd as Stephen Grant of the British Museum's gift shop. Arthur demands he return the scarab. "You will give him nothing," the voice tells Stephen. Not realizing what he is doing, Stephen continues to keep the scarab away from Arthur. As the people crowd Stephen and pry the scarab from his fingers, he blacks out and comes to when he hears the voice saying, "Oh no, the idiot's back." Stephen is now standing in the same spot with blood on his hand and 5 townspeople laying unconscious, maybe dead, around him. In Stephen's bloody hand, he holds the scarab. As he escapes in an American van with the driver's side on the left, the voice commands him not to drop the scarab. While listening to Wham! On the radio, Stephen is chased by several cars, all with non-British driver seats. As the action intensifies, Stephen again blacks out, and when he comes to, the windshield is shattered, an assailant dead, and Stephen holding his pistol. The voice now threatens Stephen to not lose the scarab. Stephen doesn't have time to get clarification as he barely misses a truck carrying logs. The truck final destinations the remaining cars in pursuit with its logs, except for 2. Stephen freaks out again, blacks out again, and comes to as the last Jeep pulls in front of him while a car falls off the roadway. The voice scolds him for losing the gun as 2 guards approach the van, which has stalled. As Stephen begins to panic again, the logs from the truck land at the lower roadway of the hill, taking out the guards and violently waking Stephen up safely in his flat once again. Stephen finds himself restrained to his bedpost once again and feels relief. As he goes about his morning routine, he feeds Gus and notices that his fin has grown back. At the pet show, the associate is completely weirded out by Stephen's bizarre behavior. He cannot recall visiting the pet store the day before, but when he sees that the time is shortly after 5 p.m., he remembers that he is supposed to have a date. At home, Stephen dresses himself up and goes to the restaurant to meet his date. When she doesn't show, Stephen calls and reminds her that they were on for 7 p.m. Friday. She tells Stephen that today is Sunday and to lose her number. Completely confused and heartbroken, Stephen gives in and placing an order, knowing nothing of how to order steak. On his mom's voicemail, Stephen makes up a story about the date as he walks home. Stephen turns the light in his apartment on and off before indulging in the box of chocolates he had bought for his date. He drops some sprinkles into the goldfish's tank, and when it doesn't eat, Stephen doubts whether this fish is truly his pet Gus. As he picks up some of the chocolates he dropped, he begins to notice strange things in his apartment, and investigates behind a loose board above his pantry. He discovers a car key and a cell phone containing several missed calls from Layla and 1 missed call from Deshawn. He calls Layla and is greeted with great surprise that he is still alive after so many months that she had been texting and calling him. Layla demands to know where his British accent came from and identifies Stephen by his true name, Marc. When Stephen inquires as to why she called him that, the call drops. Stephen hears his name being called, and tries to see who it is. After hearing the voice tell him, "You need to stop," the lights begin to flicker and Stephen runs scared from his flat to the elevator. Stephen looks at his reflection as the elevator continues its descent. On floor 2, Stephen hallucinates a creature coming for him, then wakes up in a bus when he comes to face with its beak. Everyone on the bus is looking at Stephen as he sees the figure standing on the side of the road, then notices Arthur on the bus as he exits, realizing that he is real. As Stephen enters the museum, he tries to get JB, the security guard from before, to help him, but is interrupted by Donna. Stephen sees Arthur in the museum, and excuses himself from Donna. He follows a man he saw on the bus and is confronted by Arthur, walking on his cane. As Stephen asks another security guard to help, the guard reveals his scale tattoo and proclaims, "Praise Amit." Arthur explains the philosophy of Amit to Stephen. She grew tired of waiting for sinners to commit their sins before punishing them. He tells Stephen that Amit judges our entire lives, including our futures which we cannot see. Stephen quips that the historical documents must have forgotten that part. Arthur believes that Amit was betrayed and imprisoned by indolent fellow gods. Had she been free, she may have prevented the fall of the Holy Roman Empire and the Holocaust, among other genocidal tragedies. Arthur tells Stephen that Amit was betrayed by her own avatar, a term which Stephen only knows from popular culture. Arthur knows about the voice in Stephen's head, and sets him up to be judged by Amit. As the cane dangles, the scale on Stephen's arms, Arthur's scale tattoo shakes uncontrollably, signifying chaos within Stephen. The doors to another exhibit open and Stephen runs away from Arthur, who tells the guards to let him go. That night, Arthur is doing inventory by himself as the museum closes. As Stephen is leaving, he hears a dog crying in the distance and follows the sound. Stephen is being followed as well. As he hides from an unseen creature, Arthur announces through the museum that Stephen must return the scarab. Stephen runs into the men's bathroom to hide, and is engaged in the mirror by his true alter ego Marc Spector. Marc explains to Stephen that he needs to fully give him control if they want to survive this attack. Stephen agrees and allows Marc to take him over as the creature breaks in and assaults him. The creature is then seen trying to escape, but is pulled back in and beaten to its presumed final death by a light gray-clad hero with a face-covering cowl, a hood, and a cape. The hero's name is Moon Knight.